As of earlier this week, I've officially been putting plant content out on YouTube for 7 years. My mind is blown. I can't believe I've been doing this job for this long. I absolutely freaking love it. But that got me reflecting on sort of the plants that have come and gone over the years, and more importantly, the ones that have stuck with me, because I've had hundreds of plants during this time, and there are a select few that I want to be showing you today that I have had since the very start. They've been with me through it all. Multiple homes, several growing seasons, pests, the good, the bad. They have stuck around and really earned a spot in my collection, and I can't wait to share them with you guys today. Before we get into that though, I want to say if you're new here and you don't know me already, hi, my name is Emma and I make houseplanty content all over the internet. So if you want to follow along with my houseplanty journey and maybe learn something along the way, stick around, watch some more of my videos, and subscribe to my channel. If you are not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate you returning. And if you've been here since the start, which I know some of you have, I really want to say thank you for sticking with me this whole journey and watching my plants grow along with me. But today we're just going to look at how far some of these have come. Welcome to standing on top of my bed. We're up here because I figured the best place to start would be with my first houseplant, the plant that I got first. I think this must have been back in summer 2018, so it's been 8 years at this point that I've had this plant, and it has gone through so much with me, and I now actually have it in my joint scindapsus pot because that's just easier for me to care for all of these at once. But it is the classic Scindapsus argyraeus, and yes, this plant could look a whole lot bigger, it could be a whole lot longer. I have put this plant through its paces. It's been in my care since I didn't know what I was doing, and so it's been an absolute journey. But like, the fact that I still have it just warms my heart, and I've given it so many haircuts over the years. I've put it in places that were way too dark for it. I've probably put it in places that were way too bright for it as well, but now I have it in my mixed Scindapsus pot, and I really like it in here in like conjunction with all of the rare Scindapsus. But I just love knowing that I've had this one for so long and that it's still in my collection, and it makes me happy. I feel like not very many people have the plant that they got first. Maybe you do, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like since caring for plants is such a learning curve, you might not, because it's very easy to kill plants when you don't know what you're doing. So I'm really proud of myself for still having this one and sticking with it for this long. It is definitely not the most impressive plant in this list, but oh, there we go. It's just unfurled itself down even further. It is very long. I have just wound it back up over and over again in order to not get in my way while I'm sleeping, but it just makes me so happy. I just can't believe I've had it for the entire time, and I think I would be extremely sad if I ended up losing this plant because it is just so special to me. This next guy is just a little one. This is my Sanseveria Silver Flame. It wasn't the first Sanseveria I ever got. I got the like classic snake plant mother-in-law's tongue well before this one, and the moonlight, whatever that one is. I had those before, but I don't have those anymore. But this is one that I just cannot bear to part with because it is still on the more uncommon side. I feel like you don't see them about all that often. And this one has gone on a journey with me. There was a point where I thought that this one was an absolute goner. I don't really remember exactly what happened, but I think I came back from holiday and like all but one piece of the plant was wilted and yellow and just absolutely dying. So I had to go in and do a rescue mission with it. And since then, it has given me many new pups in here. It did just have a single piece, and now I think there's like 3 or 4 different ones. And this one's not a very bright spot. It lives just up here. It does get some grow light because I have a grow light up there, but not tons and not for many hours in the day. And it is super tolerant of that. Also very tolerant of underwatering. It's probably a bit thirsty right now, and it's been like, it doesn't really complain about that. I feel like at this point it is as full as it was when I originally got it. It's just not quite as tall, and that purely is a light thing. So if I do want to get it back up to that sort of size eventually, I can do just by popping it in a slightly brighter spot. But until then, having sanseverias in low light spots is incredibly useful because they can kind of be gap fillers, because they can go where a lot of other plants wouldn't necessarily be as happy. The next one I'm going to talk about is this insanity. I can't even lift this plant up. I mean, I can lift it up, but I can't take it off of this because I don't know if I'd be able to get it back at this point. This is my scindapsus exotica. I think the earliest footage I have of it is from 2020. I just love having it around my mirror here. How cool is that? Like, it's just so pretty. I can do my outfits and also have planty vibes, which is kind of my ideal. But as you can see, this one has grown incredibly for me over the past several years. And fun fact, this is actually the first plant that I ever put into semi-hydro. I did a collab with Houseplants, and I popped this one in this pot in pond in, I think, 2020 or 2021, but it was ages ago, and I have not repotted it since. I have not repotted it in at least 5 years, and it actually hasn't been mad about that, and it has just kept growing and growing and growing and been like very thick. It's getting okay grow light. You can see it gets grow light up here, and so it does get some, but at the same time, the stuff down here, I wouldn't really say that this is enough light for it to grow, but it's still putting out new leaves. They are very low light tolerant scindapsus. This one is probably one of my biggest plants, and I actually don't know how long these vines are since I've gone up and down so many times. One day I will eventually have to move this one to a new spot or repot it or something, and when that day comes I can stretch out a vine and see how long it is. I have a feeling it's at least 6 meters, because just going from the pot to the bottom and back would be about 6 meters, which is kind of insane. There's probably some that do more than that, and so I am looking forward to that day, but also not, because it might be an insane process to repot this one into something bigger. But yeah, it just chills in semi-hydro and has a good time. I just realized I also have a lot of plants on this list that I can't actually like physically hold because they're attached to things because they're so big. And the next one is my Marble Queen pothos. I distinctly remember buying this one. I went out to a plant shop in, I think, Dulwich? I don't even know if that plant shop still exists. I haven't even looked in so long, but I went out there and I like picked this one up and came home, and it like just makes me so happy. In general, again, pothos, so easy, so chill. I have grown this one several different ways. I've grown it trailing. I'm now growing it, not exactly climbing. I've not got it on a moss pole. That is something I would love to do with my Marble Queen one day, because they can grow very differently on a pole, and so maybe in the future that is something I would like to do. But I've got it kind of trailing along my ceiling beam at the minute, and this one has tolerated so much neglect from me. In general, with my hanging plants, I don't know why I don't water them nearly as much as other things. It, like, something in my mind just doesn't click right with hanging plants, and so this one has been dehydrated in the past, and those watering issues have resulted in some bald spots on this plant, which is entirely my bad. But with a plant that's trailing along like this, I can just bring the vine back along and kind of fill in those gaps like that. And I haven't repotted it actually either. Ooh, probably since we moved here in 2021, because I immediately put this one on here and just let it grow along the beam. And at first it was only just going to about here, and it has slowly just made its way across. And just like let this go. Again, I don't know what I'm ever gonna do when I have to repot this one, because I'd need to take it down off my ceiling. So we're just gonna keep it in this slightly smaller pot for the time being, and I don't know, just let it vibe out. Up next we have the Hoya Crimson Princess, and it might not seem that impressive. It's not particularly huge of a plant, but I grew this one from propagations back at the very beginning of my houseplant collecting journey. I think I maybe had 3 cuttings that I got from my cousin's plant, and I have since been growing these out slowly, and I have absolutely not put this one in the best places in my home. If you couldn't tell, there's a bit of a theme with a lot of these plants. I have tried and tested them, and they are some of the easiest, hardiest plants. I've put them through the ringer, and they are still here and thriving at the minute, which is fantastic. So we do have to give them some grace. I think a big mistake for me with this one was figuring out lighting. I've definitely had it in spots that are way too low of light, and actually I've had it in spots that are way too bright of light. For a long time, I thought putting this one in my bright, sunny, southwest facing window would do it good, but I think it was actually burning the leaves of this one and causing it to have issues. Since I've moved it out of that and into a spot underneath a grow light that's on for 12 hours a day, it has started growing a whole heck of a lot better. You can see all this pink growth here is new, which is very exciting. And my goal for this one, because it was my first ever Hoya, ooh, look, we're trailing down. See, it is long, it's just not perfect. But my goal for this one, because it is my first ever Hoya, is to one day get this one to bloom. I know carnosas in general are not the easiest plants to get to bloom, so I have picked my battle on this one, but I would really love to get it to that point because I'd love to kind of close the circle with this one. Not that I want to get rid of it, but like it giving me flowers would be probably the greatest day of my life. I don't know, that's definitely an exaggeration, but it would mean the world to me if one day this one popped out blooms, because it is so special and I've been like trying for so long and not succeeding. So one day, if it can give me blooms, I will be extremely, extremely happy. This one here, again, started very early on in my plant collecting journey, actually from cuttings from my mother-in-law's plant, and it has since grown out quite a lot. Again, used and abused this one, have not given it the right conditions. I'm sure it would actually appreciate being in much higher light than it is. I do just have it on my shelf down here underneath a grow light, and that is probably the best place I've ever put it. I tend to put this one in dark corners because I know it'll survive, but it's just been an absolute journey. I have like chopped the tops off several times. I'm sure I probably could have grown it bigger, again, if I put it into better environments and didn't prune it as frequently and didn't neglect it water-wise, but because it is a succulent, it can tolerate all of those things and still actually put out growth in some cases. So it is growing really well now. I love how much it has branched out and it's really turned into more of a bush. Even like the stems, you can see how woody they've gotten down here, which is really good. Yeah, it's a fun one. It's, again, a very special one to me because I've had it for so long, and this thing just won't die, which is great. I love it. Okay, we're now in the office, and this one looks incredibly different to when I originally got it because it's gone on a journey. So I got quite a large plant with 3 stalks. I think I ordered it online from Patch Plants because I wanted a big thing, and it did really well for a while, but eventually it got spider mites, unfortunately. And at that point I was really not well versed in spider mites, and so I didn't know how to deal with it properly. So I decided to take safety cuttings of the plant and propagated those in perlite for quite a long time. They took a minute to root, and only one of them ended up surviving, and that is the one that we have here today. I think this is almost as tall as the plant was when I originally got it. Maybe like a little bit smaller, but of course I had 3 at that point rather than just having the 1 in here. So maybe one day I will be able to bring this back to its original glory. If I didn't say, this is the ficus elastica tineke. Sorry, but it actually took me ages to figure out what the best thing to do with this one would be. I was not giving it enough light. They actually really like bright light. If you can give them direct light indoors, that'd be fantastic. I now have it under a pendant grow light as well as these grow lights here point at it, and so it's getting quite high light now, and it has just boomed in growth since that, and it's also boomed in growth since I put it into semi-hydro. Right now it's in no drainage. I've had it in a self-watering pot before, but basically it loves having constant access to moisture, which I did not know, and I did not give it for a very long time. Like, my thought is that it's a pretty easy beginner common plant, and so it probably can be treated like a pothos, which doesn't need as much light and doesn't need as much water. No, 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 they all have different care. It survived for that long, it just was not growing as up to its like potential, if that makes sense. So now that I've figured all of that out, it is pushing out new leaves fairly constantly, and they are getting bigger, which is fantastic. And like I said, one day I would love to maybe chop and prop this one and divide it into 3 and have 3 different pieces growing together, because then I could have a big, like, giant tree again. I don't have space for that here, but you know, one day a girl can dream. Next up, we have the cast iron plant. And I didn't realize how much this one had grown until I looked back at the video of me unboxing it. It had like maybe 5 leaves at that point. And yes, I have joined this in with some variegated cast iron as well. It isn't just that plant, but I feel like pretty much all of the solid green in here is from that one plant. And so it has grown so much. And cast iron plants, they can tolerate anything. I have always put this in the like most remote dark corners of my home, and it's been absolutely fine. I think maybe got spider mites at one point because it was dry and in a dark spot and really dusty and I didn't notice, but by that point I knew how to deal with spider mites and I was able to get rid of them, and it hasn't really had any issues since. It just grows slowly and steadily. There is always some new growth in here, like there's literally a new leaf coming in right there and there, no matter what, even though it is in a fully dark corner with no grow lights, no nothing. I water it sparingly. I feel like maybe half as much as I water the rest of my collection, and oh, it's just so nice. I love it so much. And also a benefit of this one is that they are pet safe, so I don't have to worry about the cats getting into it and being an issue. I'm just obsessed with it. This is definitely a plant that I would recommend literally anyone add to their home because they can tolerate so much. Another one that I literally can't pick up, well, I mean I could, but it's sitting on the floor now and it's touching my ceiling, so it just would not work well. This guy is my bird of paradise. When I got it, it was relatively small for a bird of paradise. It wasn't a baby or anything, but it wasn't huge either. And now it is, how tall are my ceilings? 2.5 meters tall, which is just so cool. Up until very recently, I have kept it in pretty ideal conditions for it. It's one of the few plants on this list that I actually have, because bird of paradise love really bright light. And basically since I've had it, I've been able to keep it in a southwest facing window, which it has absolutely loved. It laps up that sunlight. Never really grown it under grow light, but now that it's this big, this is kind of the only place it can go, and so it has to rely on the grow light it's getting for not very many hours in the day. You can tell it's bright-ish in here. I'd say this is getting medium light most of the day, especially on sunny days, but it would prefer the bright direct light if possible. So long term, I don't think this one will be the happiest living here. You can tell it has gotten a bit leggy with not the hugest of leaves. I mean, given they are absolutely massive. They're not small by any means, but relative to the petiole size, it does look a little bit leggy. That's okay. Maybe it would have done better if it was in like a bright light grow light corner like my ficus or something, but I'm really happy with this one. I'm really proud of it, and it's just become an absolute staple in my home, and it really gives off super jungly vibes. I feel like if you want a big plant that's not very high maintenance and you've got a nice sunny corner, bird of paradise is like absolutely the answer. And it's definitely the biggest plant in my home as well, which is quite fun. And then we have the beautiful alocasia poly here. This plant was actually featured in my first ever planty Instagram post, so she's been with me from the start of my planty social media journey, and I also have a very distinct memory of getting this one. I remember picking her up from Nunhead Gardener in Nunhead, back before they had multiple different branches, but the salesperson warned me that it would probably drop a couple leaves because it wouldn't like the change of going from the plant shop to my home, and it probably did do that, but because I was expecting it, I wasn't worried about it. And after that like sort of initial shock, it did really well for quite a while until it didn't. all of a sudden, I don't know exactly what happened. I don't think it was pest related, but this one just dropped back to being one leaf. It had one leaf. And when I eventually repotted that to check on the roots, I pulled out so many corms. I probably had like 13 or 14 corms from the poly, and that is what taught me to grow alocasias from corms. I experimented with that, and I was able to put some babies back in. So I think there's 6 plants in this one now. 1 or 2 of which are from the original mother plant. The rest of them are grown from corms from this one, and so it has a lot of sentimental value to me in that respect. And also, I think this was the first alocasia I ever grew in semi-hydro, because the corms had a lot of success in semi-hydro, and so I eventually moved the mother to semi-hydro as well, and that just started my whole alocasia semi-hydro journey, and I would not turn back for a second, because I literally don't even grow alocasias not in semi-hydro anymore, because I find the thirst that they have is quenched essentially by being in semi-hydro and having constant access to a water reservoir where they can drink as much as they want. Also, this one's been really tolerant of lower light as well. I've had this in spots where it's not getting any grow light. It is now under grow light for a few hours a day. It's getting the same amount of light as my bird of paradise back there, and it seems to be perfectly fine with that. It only had a little bit of an issue when it physically touched the grow light and got a bit burnt, but other than that, it doesn't seem to mind having a little bit of a boost of light, and I think it's allowing it to grow maybe slightly less leggy. I wouldn't call this a leggy plant by any means, but maybe a little bit. And then last but certainly not least, we have the manjula pothos, or the pothos happy leaf. I think I got this one online from a shop that doesn't even exist anymore, so I can't even recommend it to you, but I got it as a very, very small plant, and it has grown insanely for me, and that is purely because I have grown it on a moss pole. This is actually the only pothos I have growing on a moss pole, and I've really enjoyed the experiment of it. I don't think I even let this one grow trailing for very long. I put it on fairly early, and I've really, really enjoyed the process and seeing how much it actually sized up being on the pole. In nature, pothos ideally like to climb things like trees, and so putting it on a moss pole has allowed it to kind of grow and mature as it would, or like as nature intended. And so that's been really, really fun to watch. And there's been points when I've neglected this moss pole. It's a big one, and so it's dried out a few times, and there's been periods where I've not been able to keep as on track of it as I might want to, but I'm back in a better place in my moss pole journey, and like I have the mental capacity to keep them moister or more moist, and so I am trying a little bit harder now. But again, we're reaching the top of the moss pole with this one, and I'm gonna have to do another extension at some point. But it's a pretty big plant on its own, and I am so, so proud of it, and I really enjoy seeing how each and every new leaf comes in, because the variegation on them, every leaf is different, and it just adds a little bit of excitement and joy to my day. And I really love getting to admire this one very regularly because it lives next to my TV, so I can just stare at it all the time. So I really enjoy that. So there we go. Those are some of the plants I've had in my collection the longest. I really hope you enjoyed hearing about their stories and seeing how far they've come. I'd love as well to hear about plants that you've had in your collection the longest, and whether they've done well, whether they've been on journeys, whether they've just like sat and given you good growth. Whatever their journey is, I'd love to hear about it down below in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up down below and comment on other houseplanty things you'd like me to talk about in the future, and subscribe for more. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to keep growing. Bye!